Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the Hasbro Marvel Universe Jubilee figure. It seems like Hasbro has been on a bit of an X-Men kick lately with their Marvel Universe releases. We got quite a few mutants popping up in the last few lines of the series, and I gotta say that definitely hits a sweet spot for me. The Marvel Universe line has always been a line that I've kind of picked and choose what figures I was getting out of, but you put out a cool X-Men character, I'm more likely to be interested for sure. And since I grew up with that 90s Fox X-Men cartoon, Jubilee was one of the big characters from that show, and I definitely wanted to pick her up in plastic. For accessories, Jubilee comes with this little X-Factor cover. Now this actually looks like the comic book. It's the full comic book art, all the stuff on there. Some of the previous ones we'd gotten in this had just been the picture with the comic book essentials removed, no title, no little box up here with the month and all that. So now they're going more with the comic book reproduction. It still feels cheap to me. To me, this is all just packaging. Hasbro continues to claim that this is an accessory to the figure, so I'll review it as an accessory, but come on, it's a piece of cardboard with a printout on it. That makes it packaging. And because we get that beautiful piece of cardboard, Hasbro continues to leave out the stands. We don't get a stand with this wave at all. We haven't gotten one for a few waves now, and I miss them so much. It was one of my favorite things getting into this line, and I'm still very disappointed that they're gone. Jubilee does come with a little power effect piece. It's a little purple translucent blob trying to replicate her powers. Now, Jubilee's powers don't really work for an effect piece like this. She makes fireworks out of her fingers, so it's very spaced out, very light. It's kind of cool that we got something, but I think a lighter color would have served her a lot better, or possibly gone even the way they did with one of the War Machines back in the day, and given us more of a smoky, clearish version of this, and then put some little pops of color every so often in it to kind of replicate the fireworks. This is just kind of a big blob of energy, and I think it's something they took from the Scarlet Witch figure. The art on the back of the card does not show this. It shows some other thing that's equally ugly, but definitely a different effect. Has a triangular hole in the bottom of it to slide over her hand. And once you slide her hand into it, it stays on there pretty well. It's a pretty decent effect, so that's definitely a positive. As for the figure herself, they did an okay job with it. They did a pretty good job with the face sculpt here. She has some nice reddish pink eyes, some lipstick going on, angry looking eyebrows. Now Jubilee is Chinese, and she doesn't really come off very Asian in this sculpt, but it's decent. They kind of had a similar problem with Psylocke. She didn't really particularly look Asian. She has her earrings on, her trademark glasses on top of her head, and a bunch of black hair. No real shading in the hair, just keeping it very simple. Come down, she's got her big yellow coat on, which looks really good. They did a good job adding texture to it. There's some subtle paint shading in it. You can really see it around the collar up here that there's some shading on it. It's also molded in a really nice shape where standing still, just posed vanilla, she looks fine. It looks like it's resting well enough. But then it's also flared out enough and dynamic enough that in action poses, it still translates that feeling of motion, feeling of something going on, which I really like. Sleeves are hard sculpted, more paint shading on it, some great sculpting detail in them. They're rolled up here on the wrist, exposing the wrist, and she has her black gloves on, which are nice. Her hands are molded in a nice pose, so that if you didn't want to use the effects part and just wanted her pretending to shoot out the fireworks, that the hands work pretty well for it. They're open enough. Some good detailing on the gloves, some nice straps that are sculpted in there. Not painted, but the sculpting work is pretty top-notch on this. Take a look at that cloak from the back. You can see what I mean about the dynamic movement in it, but still passive enough to fit in a static display. Underneath the coat, we have the new female buck. So basic sculpt we have here with a lot of other figures. A little low-hanging belt, kind of reminiscent of Black Widow with the X logo in it. She's basically just wearing a black jumpsuit on underneath. She doesn't even really have boots defined. It just kind of goes straight down. Looking at the card art, she's wearing black boots with black leggings, but really there's no way to tell on this figure where the definition between the two are. It really just looks like she's wearing a black bodysuit underneath her coat, which is a little disappointing. I would have liked some better definition of the boots here. For articulation, Jubilee has a ball-jointed head on top of that swivel hinge, which I love on Marvel Universe. Gets a great range of motion up and down, side to side, tilting, all that awesome, great articulation there. Pin socket shoulders, good range there, in and out to the side as well. She can bend and swivel at the elbow, a little limited by the sculpt, but not too bad there. She will swivel at the base of her gloves. Mid-torso articulation right under the boobs. Ball joint at the hip, she can go forward and back. Out to the side a little bit, it's a little wonky with these legs. Swivel at the upper thigh. Double jointed knee. Rotate at the mid-calf. Bend and pivot at the foot, which is really awesome. Now, I've got to say I was a little disappointed with Jubilee when I found out that she wasn't going to be the pure 90s version. The straight-up 90s version, she has a pink shirt on, she has jean shorts, and she has some kind of blue boots on. A couple other minor differences in the character design. So this is a little more modern, but to me, it's iconic enough for Jubilee that it works out even in this more updated version, and I really do dig the figure. She's definitely a recommend. Now, I've seen a lot of these with some crummy paint, and I've seen some of them with broken limbs. So it's definitely a figure you probably want to look at in person if you can. Maybe not something you want to order online completely blind, or you might be returning her. But I went to Toys R Us, I managed to pick one up, and she's a pretty solid Marvel Universe entry, and I'm really glad I got my hands on her. Be sure to check out Outside the Box Reviews on Facebook. And until next time, it's been another Outside the Box Reviews. Stay tuned for more to come.